Hey, all you Gretas and Shutescots out there. Welcome to APES Notes, Unit 5, Section 12, Introduction to Sustainability. So, human use of resources without depletion of the resources for future generations. So this is what is sustainability. We want to be able to use stuff, but still have stuff for future generations. Pretty simple. Just don't use up all the stuff. So here is a really overwhelming graphic, a core set of global environmental indicators. So you can see these are getting worse, these are getting better, and then we don't have data for a bunch of stuff. So we are getting better with energy sometimes, with renewable energy and various international treaties and environmental management. We are getting much worse with oceans and the atmosphere, kind of a big problem. Protected areas and ozone depletion are improving. We don't have a ton of data on forest or freshwater, which is probably not the best. So anyway, some very overwhelming data. So we're looking at biological diversity. So these are different global indicators that show us how sustainable we're being. So we need biodiversity, and we've talked about this in the past. We had a whole unit practically on it. So we need that genetic diversity. It helps protect freshwater resources, speeds recovery from natural disasters, maintains the balance of the ecosystem, sustainability and growth, food security, adapt to different habitats, provide biological resources, promote soil formation and protection, and maintain the food chain in nature. So our extinction rate right now is much higher than the background extinction rate. We're like 1,000 times higher, much higher. And genetic diversity is declining as well. So the outlook is extinctions will continue. Many scientists claim there have been 5 mass extinctions over the history of life on Earth as we know it. We are currently in the 6th mass extinction, and this one is 100% caused by human activity, not something neat like an asteroid. Food production, let's put me over here. So food production, per capita production is possibly leveling off. It's unclear, but we talked about feeding everybody in the past in a previous notes. And we waste a lot of food. Food waste is huge issue. Caloric intake is going up. That does not mean nutrient intake is going up. Beef demand is going up. And we talked about before, if you can reduce the meat and dairy consumption, you can feed a whole lot more people. The average global surface temperature and CO2 concentration is increasing and will definitely continue to increase, at least in the short term. You can't just stop that. If we stopped all fossil fuels today, it would still continue to get warmer for at least a little bit because there are consequences of everything we have done. The latest reading was 415 parts per million. Gosh. I remember when it was much lower. So this is bad, guys. Human population. We keep making babies. Still increasing, but the growth rate is decreasing. Population is leveling off. Remember, you need to make 2 babies. One to replace you, one to replace your mate. Try not to make too many more than that. And that will definitely help with the human population thing. Resource depletion. Rapid depletion for many. Human ingenuity does develop new resources, but the efficiency of use is increasing in some cases, but it's unknown. There's still a lot of stuff that we're using up, a lot of non-renewable resources that once they're gone, they're gone. A lot are used in electronics. Here is an interesting graphic of the most serious environmental problems. So we have air pollution, automobile emissions, climate change, depletion of natural resources, freshwater shortages, genetically modified foods, loss of biodiversity, and water pollution. So you can see the different issues in different parts of the world. So we have something called maximum sustainable yield. And this is the maximum amount of a resource that can be harvested without compromising the future availability of that resource. So the maximum harvest that can be replaced by just standard population growth. So you'll have enough for you, and the next generation will have enough as well. The maximum sustainable yield is literally half of whatever your carrying capacity is. So you want to have whatever you got, use half of it. If it's if you have like your annual harvest, once again, half of what you can possibly use up. If you're talking about fishing, if you don't do enough, you can use more. Overfishing is bad. Optimal yield, you have this middle area. Problems with a true maximum sustainable yield is who is determining it. If it's the economist, it's probably going to be higher. If it's the environmentalist, it's going to be lower because they want people to use less stuff. Also, the earth is changing, so the true carrying capacity could be changing. Once again, very political. And then the more people or less people that you have using things. So there's a lot of things that go into it. Here's a nifty little quote. The concept of maximum sustainable yield, often referred to as MSY, is seductive. It is defined as the greatest amount that can be taken from a self-generation wild population of animals year after year while still maintaining a constant average size of the population. Or, as summed up by the biologist P.A. Larkin in his keynote address to the American Fisheries Society in 1976, it is an optimistic dogma that assumes that any species each year produce a harvestable surplus, and if you take that much and no more, you can go on getting it forever and ever. We don't take just the maximum sustainable yield, so that is our problem. And we are done. So before we go, I'd like to let each and every one of you know that you are smart enough, you are good enough, and people like you. And if I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good gad, do your homework.